Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of retargeting, where in the previous video we learned how to attach a custom skeleton and character to a rapid rig. Now we're going to kind of do the reverse, where we're going to take some animation data on a skeleton and we want to uh, retarget that to our rapid rig controls. So here I have a rig that's built to match the same proportions as Manny from Unreal. So whatever your character you're doing, you want to have your rapid rig as close as you can to that. So what I'm going to do is reference in um, our Manny run. So here is my file I created. So I took the skeletal mesh FBX and then imported the animation onto that FBX. Again, both those were pulled from Unreal, so that I can have the mesh here as well as the model. And by doing it that way, I can then take the model and just say skin go to bind pose. And what that will do is it'll put it back into its neutral state. And this will be really helpful for attaching our rapid rig to our Manny skeleton. So if I look at my animation here, which I think is 57 frames long, you can see there goes Manny for a run. But our rapid rig is not attached to it. So that's what we need to do. So let's go ahead and put Manny back at his bind pose. And then we're going to go over to our joint settings again and attach custom skeleton. And this time we're going to, instead of attach custom skeleton to RRM3 rig, we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to attach our rig or our controls to a custom skeleton, which in this case is Manny running. So we want to have our controls follow that running. So I'm going to go ahead and create my attach mapping, and I'm going to load in my rig. And then I'm going to bring in the Manny skeleton. So let's go ahead and grab the root, and I'm going to go ahead and map. And this time I'm not going to turn on any tolerances because I want all of my controls to follow the rig based on their closest thing. So this will help with some of the IK controls specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and hit map, and I'll say all descendants again. You could choose to do for only the selected ones if you want, and then you could choose the other option. But here I have everything. Now, I'm just going to move this window over. This is good for the most part, except that generally speaking, we don't want to animate the main controls here. Otherwise, they'll move with the character, and then if we want to go in and touch anything, then we have to undo this foot sliding and create all these other issues. So if you want the main control to move with, you can, but I don't, so I'm going to just set all these to be none. So that means for each of these controls, these ones here, I'm just going to set them to none. Okay. And we could do other things like the cog control and some of those other ones if we'd like, but I'm okay with the rest moving. I just really want these ones to not move. Okay. And so once we have that, we can save our mapping. We can mess with our offsets if we want some things to go off and on. If I want to, again, have no offsets, I can hold the shift key and set all checkboxes, or I could just turn on certain ones. I'll press shift to turn them all back on. And then we can also remove some of these from our mapping entirely if we don't want to see those because we know we're not wanting them anymore. I like to keep them all around, but if you want to clean it up so there's way less in here, you could do that too. And I'm going to go ahead and save my mapping, and I'm just going to go to my data, and I'm going to just replace this previous one I made as a previous test, and I'll just save over that one. Okay, and then that way I could load it back in. So let's say I were to clear all this, delete all rows, and then I'll go here. And again, rather than selecting all these, I'm just going to go and click this and say all descendants, and it will grab all of them. There we go. And you can see that these all went back to the root. So if I load my mapping in, you can see it set those back to none. And it will also remember your maintain offsets and things like that. Okay. So now that we're happy with our mapping, all we have to do is just press attach. And again, make sure that Manny's back in the neutral pose or that you've lined your controls up to the skeleton. And I'm going to just hit attach, proceed, and break connections. Okay. And so now, there we go. So we can see that we have our rapid rig running with the Mani controls. Or with the joints, I should say. Okay, so now all these controls are constrained to Mani. So if we were to remove the reference, then we would lose all that animation. So the final step that we need to do is just do a bake. So I can use my marking menu, my custom RRM3 marking menu, and I'm just going to select all my controls. All controls, there we go. You could also use the selector UI and select all the controls that way, but we just want to make sure that we grab all of our controls for our rig. And then we're going to go to Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation. Oops, go. And I'm just going to use the default settings in here. So I'll just reset and I'll hit Bake. And that's going to take all those constraints and bake that all to animation. So now if we select any of these controls, we could see that we now have just keyframes. And so now if I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and remove my Mani reference, and all that's left is Rapid Rig ready to animate. Or animated, I should say. And then we could go in and, tune it or make a variant animation and then export that to Engine or whatever we want to do with it. So really useful if you're trying to get animation that's been mocapped onto your rig or something you brought from an engine, for example. And the nice thing with this is once you have your mapping saved, when you go in and load in a new animation, you can just load in that same mapping, and then you don't have to worry about going to the neutral pose for each one. So hopefully you just need to set this mapping up once per rig and skeleton pair, and then it should be pretty straightforward. But there we go. So now we're ready to continue animating with this retargeted animation onto Rapid Rig.